Here in the Gaza Strip, the situation is getting desperate day by day, and the people are bearing the brunt of more Israeli actions, military actions, airstrikes, bombardments in various parts of the region. As of today morning, this morning, more than 40 people have been reportedly killed in a series of or numerous Israeli airstrikes on various parts of the Gaza Strip, starting from the southern parts of the region, Khan Yunis city, where 8 homes have been hit by the airstrikes overnight, killing about 30 people. At least 30 were reportedly killed during these strikes that are being intensified in many parts of the region. Other strikes hit the Deir al-Balah town in central Gaza Strip. Also in Gaza City, where we are now in Gaza City, an apartment has been hit overnight, leading to the death of 3 Palestinians. These and the injuries is mounting. The number of injuries is mounting by the time today. Dozens of people also have been injured because of these strikes and the intensity of Israeli military actions across the Gaza Strips. Many of those killed during these bombardments and strikes are women and children. And all these actions by the Israeli army against the Palestinian coastal enclave here in the Gaza Strip is coming out of more Israeli threats by the Israeli officials. I mean, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had already stated a couple of days ago that Israel will continue to carry out actions against the Islamist Hamas party, and these actions are said to be intended at Hamas party that has been in a fight with Israel since October of 2023, when Hamas carried out its unprecedented massive attack on nearby Israeli towns, leading to the death of hundreds of Israelis and injury of many others, as well as the hostages or the captivation of more than 200 of them. Only 59 of them are reported to have been left in Gaza following a series of a prisoner swap deal or truce after the truce agreement in January, following a series of a truce deal mediated truce deals between Hamas and prisoner swap deal between Hamas and Israel. The latest of whom who was released was Aidan Alexander, who was released by Hamas, the American Israeli soldier, who was released by Aidan by Hamas within direct talks between Hamas leaders and the American administration. Based on that, Israel was supposed to enter the humanitarian aid that have been lacking actually for the past several weeks in Gaza, causing the people of the Gaza Strip to reach the edge of starvation and reach the edge of starvation. To reach the edge of starvation and malnutrition here in the territory. Israel has not been able to enter those aid and supplies into Gaza, even after the release of the American Israeli soldier who has been captivated by Hamas for the past 20 months, almost for the past 20 months. This situation goes with Israeli officials' remarks over the past period of time, over the past few days, that Israel will continue its operations against the Gaza Strip, military actions against the Gaza Strip, military actions against the Gaza Strip over the past few days. Over the past few days, Israeli officials, including the Prime Minister of Israel, had already stated that Israel will continue its war against the Gaza Strip until Hamas is defeated, and that all of Hamas leaders and elements should leave the Gaza Strip, and that Hamas should dismantle its weaponry. In the end of the day, actually, the people here, the 2.3 million Palestinians, are bearing the brunt of this devastating or continuous Israeli actions, of these continuous Israeli actions against the Gaza Strip, in a sense that the people here, more than 55,000 people, have been so far killed. Most or half of them, more than half of them, are women and children being hit inside homes, shelter tents in different parts of the region, as well as the injury of 120,000 Palestinians. More than half of them also are women and children in populated areas or residential neighborhoods, apartment buildings, towers, or high rises, also in shelter tents. This war has caused this massive suffering for the population in Gaza, where more than 70% of the housing units in the territory have been either completely or partially destroyed because of the Israeli army actions throughout the region, from the south to the north. And now, for the time being, Israel, that is not ready to withdraw its troops from the Gaza Strip, as stated by the Israeli Prime Minister. For the time being, 35% of the size of the land in the Gaza Strip have been grabbed by the Israeli army for security reasons that Israel always cites during this war. The majority of those lands are located in Rafah town in south of the Strip, which is about 75 square meter in size, about a third or quarter of the general or the total size of the land in the Gaza Strip, which is 365 square kilometers. Now Rafah is being controlled and have been swept by the Israeli army. Majority of the buildings of the structures in Rafah have been wiped off for the time being, and the Israeli army is still present over there, beefing up the presence by the time, not only in the south of the territory, but also in the north of the territory, actually, where there are the towns of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, that are bordering Israel, very adjacent to the Israel-Gaza border lines, in which Israel has had a very intensive presence over there since the war has begun or has erupted on the territory back in October 2023. Let us here refer to the fact that the Israeli army is also having a presence, an intensified presence on the eastern parts of Gaza City, mainly the Shija'iyya neighborhood, from which the population left and evacuated, given Israeli army orders. Now they are present over there and restoring control over the border lines from the south to the north in this very tiny coastal enclave. The suffering that has reached paramount is represented and is being mentioned by international reports for the time being, as the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has recently stated that one person among 5 others in the territory is already starving and reaching the edge of starvation or malnutrition in the territory because of the lack of the basic supplies, essential ones like the flour that has been very scarce in the territory over the past several weeks, to the extent that majority of the people cannot afford some limited quantities of flour still available in the territory. For instance, the bag of a flour or is sold for more than $200. In the previous times, it reached about 300, 400 US dollars. 25 kilograms of flour in one bag are costing that price. That is a very skyrocketing and unbelievable, unaffordable, not only for the Gazans, but also for majority of the human beings around the world. That is because of the closure of the borders by Israel since early March, and the continuation, resumption of Israeli military actions over the territory on 18th of the same March month. So several weeks now have been very devastating for the Palestinian population in terms of the casualties that are mounting in terms of the death toll and the injuries, and also in terms of the economy that has been already depleted because of the 20-month-long Israeli war on the territory. Palestinians, and by the way, today is May 15, which is the anniversary of the Palestinian, the early or the first Palestinian Nakba or catastrophe, and the displacement of more than 750,000 Palestinians back in 1948, when Israeli militias took over largest swaths of the historical Palestine back in 1948. That's what I mean. Largest swaths, about more than 70% of the Palestinian lands were taken over by Israel during that time period, the same year, 1948, and majority of the population here are grandsons and grandchildren of those who were forced to displace and leave their towns and villages in historical Palestine because of the Israeli militias' actions over there. The situation here on the Gaza Strip for the past 20 months resembles maybe more than 5 times or 3 times the Nakba of the 1948. It is more than the Nakba of 1948, as I have just mentioned, that there is no life left for the Palestinians in Gaza because of this war. Displacement is everywhere, and also tents are scattering again in different in all of the territory, in all parts of the territory. As you might see here in the camera, this is one. Let me just show you one of the tents. I am right now in Gaza City, where I am reporting to you from a main street, or an important street in the heart of Gaza City. Gaza City's neighborhood, Arimal. Arimal was a key modernized neighborhood in Gaza City. Now the Arimal headquarters is having tents in different parts of Gaza City, even on this street. You can see just on the middle of this street, which is a two-sided street, there is a tent. Inside this tent, about 10-member family living and evacuating from the eastern parts of Gaza City, the border areas, to the western Gaza City, where we are in the heart of the Rimal neighborhood here in this part of the Gaza City. Let me also show you another scene of the tents. Now you know the tents are just stuffed here. So the situation of this current Nakba, the modern Nakba of the Palestinian people for this time, is more than ways more than the Palestinian Nakba, whose anniversary is today, of 1948, in a sense that tents are repeating themselves again, coming over again to the population, to the Palestinian areas, like the tents that were erected back in 1948 when Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their historical towns and villages back in Palestine in the year 1948. Also, let us mention one important fact, that the health system is very down here in Gaza, with UNRWA, which is UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Gaza Strip and in the Near East in general, is not now able to deal with the services that it has been ever providing for the population since the 48 Nakba. Let me just mention here that the UNRWA, yes, is not able at this time, particular time with the war in the Gaza Strip, is unable to give or to provide services because of the high amount of restrictions. Also, the educational services are down for 20 months now. Yes, no educational services, and only the food supplies, which are already scarce and short in the territory, the ones that are most picked and most available right here in the Gaza Strip. Little amount of institutional or limited institutional work. Universities are shut down. Yes, hospitals running very low, running very short, with shortage of supplies, medical equipment and medicines, to the extent that the hospital staffs are not able to carry out the surgeries for many of the population. They are only doing emergency services and operations for the patients in the Gaza Strip. As I have just referred to UNRWA is not able. But back, compared with what's going on now to what happened back in 1948, about 1 year or 2 years after the 1948 Nakba, Palestinians were able to get some schooling by the UNRWA, get some health services, sanitation services, and in the course of 10 or 15 years, many people of the original indigenous Palestinians who were displaced from their towns and villages back in 1948 were able to have some kind of education, to rebuild their lives. Yes, but now for this Nakba that is the Palestinians prefer to describe, for this Palestinian Nakba, this is not according to Palestinians what I'm going to say. It is according to international organizations, including United Nations itself, that they all suggest that Gaza needs at least 25 years until it is standing on feet, until it is reconstructed. And according to these estimates and suggestions, the Gaza's reconstruction or the removal of the rubble in the whole region, which is about 14 million tons of rubble, as stated by the agencies and the concerned institutions, the amount of rubble needs to be removed, or the rubble itself needs to be removed in about 5 years from now, which is a very futile and a prolonged process of reconstruction of the territory. So this is what the Palestinians here prefer to call as their maybe major Nakba, not second Nakba, it's a major Nakba, with no prospect for any kind of a peacemaking in the region. And you might understand that some influential key countries like United States, that has been on the side or supporting Israel over the past decades, is now talking about, the US administration talking about a possible or chances of possible peace between Israel and Palestinians based on the two-state solution that has been already envisioned and long time envisioned by Washington since the signing of the Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization back in 1993. Now the chances for this two-state solution are very dimmed and very limited, with more Israeli actions across the Gaza Strip, with more Israeli threats against threats and warnings to occupy or to restore control over the Gaza Strip until Hamas surrenders and is defeated and is evicted or crushed out of the Gaza Strip, something that Hamas has already recently rejected and reiterating its position that Israeli forces should withdraw and the war should come to an end once and for all. Also, Israeli actions across the West Bank, you might understand that they are continuing. So Gaza and West Bank and East Jerusalem are parts of the Palestinian state envisioned by Washington and other key international parties, United Nations, China, Russia, as key members of the Security Council. So the situation is very catastrophic. In brief, I can say it's very catastrophic and disastrous for the population in Gaza. Reminder of their Nakba, a larger image of Nakba, a larger ramification of Israeli, a larger ramification of the Israeli operations against the Gaza Strip, much larger than the ramification of the Palestinian Nakba of 1948. Yes.
Following the release of Israeli-American soldier Idan Alexander earlier this week, there are now 58 hostages still left in Gaza. As far as Israel knows, as far as Israel is aware, some 20 to 23 of those hostages may still be alive. They can still be saved. They include, for example, brothers David Cunio and Ariel Cunio. Both of them kidnapped from their home in Kibbutz Nir Oz, just outside the Gaza border. They're not the only brothers. We can see here another set of brothers, Ziv and Gali Berman. Both of them kidnapped from their homes in Kibbutz Nachal Oz, which is also Kfar Aza, Kibbutz Kfar Aza, which is also just outside the Gaza border. Here they are, the two brothers, very big football fans, and as this season is coming to an end, their beloved team already announced that their season tickets for the next season is waiting for them. They just need to come back, and their family knows they're alive. Another hostage who is alive, Elkanah Buchbut, there he is. Earlier this week, Israel receiving proof of life, a video from him surfacing, a video released by Hamas. He is alive. We can see he was kidnapped when he's 34. He's 36 now, meaning he celebrated, if we can call it a celebration, he celebrated 2 birthdays while in captivity. He is alive. He can be saved. But of course, we're not only speaking of hostages who are alive, there are also hostages who were killed, maybe during the October 7th operation, maybe while in captivity. They include, for example, Itai Chen. Here he is. Also an Israeli American. His father, Ruby Chen, is very much involved in the attempts to bring everybody back, despite the fact that he knows that his son is already dead. The bodies, anything between 35 to 38 bodies, also held in Gaza, and they should also be brought back. All this introduction is important to understand what is unveiling, what is happening now as we speak at these times. This place, Hostage Square in central Tel Aviv, still not very packed at this early hour of the morning, but there are many preparations here. You saw the pictures. There are flags, there are chairs, there are seats. Things are ready for big events which are planned here this evening and also throughout the weekend. There is an understanding that we are at crucial times. Why so? President Trump is just about to end his visit to Qatar, the United States, the mediator with the most influence on Israel, and Qatar, the mediator with the most influence on Hamas. And there's an understanding in Israel that these are crucial times. On the one hand, we're hearing that Israel is making all of the necessary preparations for the expansion of the military operation. As far as Israel is concerned, the only thing that is left to happen is for President Trump to leave the area. Once that happens, Israel is ready to expand the military operation with all of the repercussions that that may have on the hostages. On the other hand, and as President Trump is in the region, we're hearing of massive attempts by the mediators, Qatar, the United States, also Egypt, to renew negotiations that could perhaps lead to the release, at least of some of the hostages that we've seen their faces, the brothers Ariel and David Cunio, the brothers Gil and Ziv Berman, the bodies Itai Chen that we've seen, and many others. That depends on the efforts made by the mediators, and this is now happening, and the hostage families and the hostage supporters will be coming here to Hostage Square this evening and to many other places in Tel Aviv and throughout the country, demanding that the war is stopped, at least for some time, and some kind of an agreement is reached. We saw here at this place earlier this week the very emotional scenes as one hostage, Idan Alexander, was released and taken to a hospital which is very close to the place where we are, the Ichilov hospital, just about half a mile or so from the place where we are. And as the helicopter was passing above our heads, there was sheer excitement in this place, and Israelis want to see more and more of that. We do understand that there is an attempt, especially by the United States, to renew negotiations which are based on the Witkoff Plan. The Witkoff Plan calls for the release of up to 10 living hostages and up to 15 or 16 hostage bodies. That would mean roughly half of the remaining hostages will be released, and Israel in return, first of all, will release a very large number of Palestinian prisoners, many of them convicted murderers, but Israel will also commit to a long period of ceasefire, 70 days, 80 days, something of the kind. And during this time, there will be heightened negotiations, a lot of negotiations meant to bring an actual end to the war, and what is most important for the vast majority of the Israeli society, a release of all the hostages. All this is happening now. All this is happening as we speak, as the president, the U.S. president, is still at the moment in Qatar before he travels to the final leg of his Middle East visit in the United Arab Emirates. While in Qatar, there are a lot of negotiations between the president and the leaders of Qatar. Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, who was here earlier this week for the release of Idan Alexander, is also in Qatar, and also an Israeli delegation is there. But Witkoff is doing a lot of direct negotiations directly with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, bypassing actually the Israeli delegation that is in Qatar. Many Israelis, those who criticize the government, are saying that Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a mastermind of delaying things, of slowing down processes, he intentionally sent a delegation so that the delegation would come back, and consultations, and this is something that the Americans do not want. The United States want direct negotiations and want results fast. The American attempt is perhaps to have some kind of an agreement actually before the president leaves back for the U.S. That will happen tomorrow. The Americans are hoping that some kind of an agreement will be reached even before that. Is that a realistic scenario or an illusion? Of course, we can't really assume, especially when President Trump is involved in this. Things are always unknown and anything can happen. But what the families are aiming and what they will be demanding as families and supporters come here to this square later this evening is some kind of an agreement. The Witkoff plan that will bring 10 hostages alive, perhaps that's already a good beginning. Although what everybody is hoping is that there will be some kind of an agreement that will bring everybody back. This is what the families are demanding, and this is what will be called for in Horsted Square later this evening. Negotiations are planned here. Protests are planned here at this place. Protests are also planned at the Begin Gate, which is the entrance to the Ministry of Defense, which is also quite close to the place where we are. The demand here is to see some kind of an agreement. Will we see President Trump maybe on his way back to Washington, touching down at Ben Gurion Airport? The American hope is that this will happen tomorrow if there will be some kind of an agreement. The problem is, of course, not only Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but even more so his government, his coalition. We know that the right-wing partners in this coalition, specifically Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, strongly oppose any deal at the moment. They're saying that the only way to bring back the hostages is to demolish Hamas through military pressure. What will it be? The American pressure to find an agreement, or the political pressure for the government to remain in place? The next 24 hours should give us some kind of an answer. It seems as if we're in a very, very crucial day. Jonathan Regev, CGTN, Tel Aviv.
اسمي ياهب عياد، عمري 12 سنة، صف سابع. خايفة إني ما طبش وما رجعش زي ما كنت وما لقيش العلاج.
بنتي كانت في البداية تتوجع، تجيبها وجع في رجليها وفي ايديها وفي عظمها. قعدت يعني تقريبا أسبوع الوجع ضايل مستمر معها. عندها سوء تغذية حاد، ف وإيش عندها برضه أمراض محدش عارف إيش هي، فمش عارفة أنا لغاية لما وصلت البنت لهذه الحالة اللي انتوا شايفينها. شعرها بقع يوم عن يوم، رجليها لما بتمشي أكتر من بتنفخ، ووجهها أحيانا متنفخ، عظمها بيجعها. اللي 8 شهور بعاني فيها وبعاني في حالتها هذه. بسبب تسكير المعابر وإنه ما بتاخدناش المساعدات زاد وضعها أكتر، يعني زادت حالتها زيادة، لأنه إحنا كمان مش متوفر عنا أغذية، مش متوفر عنا الأكل المناسب لحالتها. هي إلها أكل خاص، وكمان حتى لو متوفر الأسعار نار، فكل هذا مش متوفر عنا إحنا. كل ما بننطح كانت تسوء حالتها أكتر، وكانت تتعب أكتر وتتوجع أكتر، إنه هي ما بتقدرش تمشي. وإنت عارف إيش يعني نزوح، يعني مشي وطلعة وبهدلة، فكانت تمرض بزيادة وعاني فيها أكتر، وروح على المستشفيات تاني، لأنه النزوح هذا صعب علينا كتير، معاناة، بنعاني في النزوح كتير.
كثير من الأطفال يحضروا إلى مستشفى الرنتيسي بسبب سوء التغذية. سوء التغذية بالغالب يعني بصير نقصان حاد عند الأطفال، طبعا مما يؤدي إلى نقصان في المناعة، وبالتالي يؤدي إلى التهابات حادة عند الأطفال. طبعا وللأسف الشديد بسبب الالتهابات الحادة وسوء التغذية ونقصان المناعة توفي عندنا بعض الأطفال في المستشفيات قطاع غزة.
أنا بتمنى إني أرجع زي ما كنت، بتمنى تفتح المعابر عشان يدخل الأكل والعلاج، وبتمنى إني ألعب مع صحباتي وأخواتي.
It has been impacting people severely, and of course they don't know how they're going to survive the next day, and many people are struggling to find food. Malnutrition rates are going up, according to our malnutrition partners, who also announced today that they have now run out of malnutrition prevention supplies that obviously treat or prevent these kinds of cases, and they only have left in stock malnutrition treatment supplies, which will also eventually run out unless the situation changes quickly.
خايفة بكده، خايفة يعني إنها تروح من بين إيديا، لأنه أنا من حقنا إحنا يعني في غزة إن أولادنا يعيشوا، من حقهم إنهم يتمتعوا بالحياة، هذا أبسط حق من حقوقهم، يرجعوا طبيعيين، يروح الخوف منهم، يرجعوا يلعبوا، يطلعوا على المدارس. يعني هذا حلمنا، إنه إحنا كان حلمنا إنه إحنا نعلم أولادنا، لقيت الحلم هذا ضاع من بيننا ومن إيدينا، حتى ضاع منهم هم، ضاعت طفولتهم، ضاعت حياتهم، تبهدلوا في الحياة.
أنا الصحفي حازم سليمان من سكان مدينة رفح، عمري 27 عام، نازح الآن في مدينة خان يونس، متزوج. صحفي حر، فريلانسر، بصور مشاهد الدمار، بصور الأوضاع الإنسانية الصعبة اللي بتصير في غزة على مدار 18 شهر.
يا لعيب.
طبعا أنا تعرضت لإصابة عام 2018 بتاريخ 3/7 على الحدود الشرقية لمدينة غزة، تحديدا شرق حي الشجاعية، من قناص إسرائيلي. لكن الاستهداف ما زاد ضعف، بالعكس زادني قوة وزادني عزيمة إن أنا استمر في نقل الحقيقة ونقل الصورة، حتى لو تم استهدافي مرة أخرى. أنا فقدت قدمي في مسيرة الصحافة، فقدت رجلي عشان أنقل الصورة والحقيقة من قلب غزة ومن قلب المعاناة، وأعرف العالم إنه غزة بتتعرض لإبادة. أنا خايف مش علي، مش من الاستهداف، أنا تم استهدافي قبل هيك. أنا خايف على أهلي وأولادي وأصغاري. أنا كل ما أسمع صوت استطلاع في الليل بالذات، أسمع الطيران المروحي، الكواد كابتر، بتهيأ لي أني في لحظة هيك أنه يتم استهدافي زي ما تم استهداف زملائي. يعني استهداف الصحفيين ممنهج للاحتلال الإسرائيلي لطمس الصورة ودفن الحقيقة، لكن أنا كصحفي وكل زملائي الصحفيين مستمرين على هذه المسيرة وعلى مسيرة الشهداء وعلى دمهم لآخر يوم، حتى لو تم استهدافنا كلنا. بواكب الأحداث، بطلع على الاستهدافات بدراجتي، بنقل الحقيقة، بنقل الصورة، رغم أنه الدراجة في الأوقات اللي احنا فيها تنقل فيها صعوبة بسبب تدمير الشوارع، بسبب تدمير الأحياء السكنية. أشياء كثيرة بتواجهني في التنقل. يعني مثلا لو استهداف كان بعيد عني 3-4 كيلو، أنا بتعب لما أصل له، بالرغم أن أنا دراج. الوضع العائلي طبعا أنا وحيد الأهل، بوفق ما بين العائلة والشغل، شغل الصحافة، يعني بظروف صعبة بصراحة. يعني لما أنا أكون مثلا في عملي ما في حد بدالي إنه يسد، مثلا في تعباية مية، في توصيل إشي، في جيبة إشي من السوق، مثلا شادر انفك لازم أنا أجي أدقه، مثلا سلك انفك لازم أنا أدقه، مثلا تحويلة، مثلا تحويلة البطاريات عشان الإنارة لو تأخرت عليهم في الليل بيعرفوش يحاولوا إلا أنا نكون موجود. شغلات كتير معتمدين علي الأهل فيها، بحاول أن أرفع عنهم، إن أنا أورجيهم فيديوهات مثلا من طيور الجنة، من الألعاب، إن أنا أبعد عنهم جو الحرب وجو الزنانات وجو القصف. في النهاية لازم الطفل إنه يتذكر إنه والده أو العائلة كانت تعطيه إشي في أمل، في حضن دافئ، وهذا اللي بحاول أوفره في ظل الظروف الصعبة، يعني ما بين مهنة الصحافة وما بين الحياة اليومية.
بكم سعر الطحين اليوم؟
45.
أنا اسمي تحرير عبد الله حسين أبو جبل، عمري 38 سنة وعندي 7 أطفال. أنا نازحة من الشمال بيت لاهيا. رغم إنه يعني الطحين مسوس، له ريحة، يعني لما بتنخل بيطلع منه سوس، بيطلع منه دود، بس فيش عنا إلا بديل غيره. هذا الناس كلها يعني جربت تسلق المعكرونة، بعدين يصفوها ويطحنوها مع الرز مع بعض ويسووا منها عجينة طعموا الأطفال، لأنه إحنا عندنا الوضع بالمرة فيش طحين، الطحين غالي كتير. طبعا فيش حاجة بتسد يعني على الأطفال بدون طحين، والأولاد إذا ما فيش أكل حيقعدوا يعيطوا. مش بس هيك، كمان إنه الطحين بده ملح، بده خميرة. طب عندك كيلو الملح وصل 70 شيكل، مين بده يجيبه؟ الخميرة 70. هذا كله غالي غالي، ما حدش. طب انا هيني تو عجنت، لا حطيت زيت ولا حطيت ملح ولا حاجه.
وكيس المعكرونه 400 جرام ايش بده يعمل؟ بيعمل له 8-9 ترغفه. طبعا 8 ترغفه يعني ادوب وجبه واحده باليوم ناكلها على العشاء عشان ننام شبعانين، عشان يعرفوا الاطفال يناموا. نتعشى خبز عشان يعرف الاطفال يناموا. انا في عندي جيران لهم شهرين ما شافوش الخبز، شهرين ما عندهمش طحين. ولما جابوا كيلو الابو ما كلش منه، من كيلو الطحين. يعني احنا بنعيش معاناه حقيقيه بتوفير الطحين.
طبعا يعني بعد الحين المؤسسات حتسكر والغذاء العالمي مسكر كله حيسكر الاشياء اللي بتيجي من الطعام للناس، طبعا خلص يعني حيصير اغلبيه الاطفال معهم سوء تغذيه وحالتهم حتصير سوء.
المجاعة تشتد في قطاع غزة في ظل إعلان عشرات المطابخ المجتمعية عن توقف عملها لتزويد المواطنين ب500 ألف وجبة باتت غير قادرة في ظل نفاذ ما لديها من مواد لإنتاج هذه الوجبات. حالات سوء التغذية بعشرات الآلاف بين الأطفال بما يهدد حياتهم بمعنى الكلمة. كبار السن في ظل فقدان موادهم الغذائية وعدم القدرة على توفيرها. المجتمع الدولي اليوم مطالب من أجل التدخل الفوري والعاجل للضغط على الاحتلال الإسرائيلي لفتح المعابر وإدخال المساعدات في ظل حالة المجاعة.
أنا عندي 7 أنفار وممكن، طب اللي عنده 12 نفر 13 نفر من وين هذا بده يجي؟ فيش شغل، فيش أي حاجة تدخل البلد، يعني حياتنا وقلتها واحد، يعني الموت أحسن لنا، إحنا الموت أحسن لنا.
أنا اسمي ياهب عياد، عمري 12 سنة، صف سابع. خايفة إني ما طبش وما رجعش زي ما كنت وما لقيش العلاج.
بنتي كانت في البداية تتوجع، تجيبها وجع في رجليها وفي ايديها وفي عظمها. قعدت يعني تقريبا أسبوع الوجع ضايل مستمر معها. عندها سوء تغذية حاد، ف وإيش عندها برضه أمراض محدش عارف إيش هي، فمش عارفة أنا لغاية لما وصلت البنت لهذه الحالة اللي انتوا شايفينها. شعرها بقع يوم عن يوم، رجلها لما بتمشي أكتر من بتنفخ، ووجهها بتطلع أحيانا متنفخ، عظمها بيجعها. اللي 8 شهور بعاني فيها وبعاني في حالتها هذه. بسبب تسكير المعابر وإنه ما بتاخدناش المساعدات ازداد وضعها أكتر، يعني ازدادت حالتها زيادة، لأنه إحنا كمان مش متوفر عنا أغذية، مش متوفر عنا الأكل المناسب لحالتها. هي إلها أكل خاص، وكمان حتى لو متوفر الأسعار نار، فكل هذا مش متوفر عنا إحنا. كل ما بننطح كانت تسوء حالتها أكتر، وكانت تتعب أكتر وتتوجع أكتر، إنه هي ما بتقدرش تمشي. وإنت عارف إيش يعني نزوح، يعني مشي وطلعة وبهدلة، فكانت تمرض بزيادة وعاني فيها أكتر وأروح على المستشفيات تاني، لأنه النزوح هذا صعب علينا كتير، معاناة، بنعاني في النزوح كتير.
كثير من الأطفال يحضروا إلى مستشفى الرنتيسي بسبب سوء التغذية. سوء التغذية بالغالب يعني بصير نقصان حاد عند الأطفال، طبعا مما يؤدي إلى نقصان في المناعة، وبالتالي يؤدي إلى التهابات حادة عند الأطفال. طبعا وللأسف شديد بسبب الالتهابات الحادة وسوء التغذية ونقصان المناعة توفي عندنا بعض الأطفال في المستشفيات قطاع غزة.
أنا بتمنى إني أرجع زي ما كنت، بتمنى تفتح المعابر عشان يدخل الأكل والعلاج، وبتمنى إني ألعب مع صحباتي وأخواتي.
It has been impacting people severely, and of course they don't know how they're going to survive the next day, and many people are struggling to find food. Malnutrition rates are going up, according to our malnutrition partners, who also announced today that they have now run out of malnutrition prevention supplies that obviously treat or prevent these kinds of cases, and they only have left in stock malnutrition treatment supplies, which will also eventually run out unless the situation changes quickly.
خايفة بكده، خايفة يعني إنها تروح من بين إيديا، لأنه أنا من حقنا إحنا يعني في غزة إن أولادنا يعيشوا، من حقهم إنهم يتمتعوا بالحياة، هذا أبسط حق من حقوقهم، يرجعوا طبيعيين، يروح الخوف منهم، يرجعوا يلعبوا، يطلعوا على المدارس. يعني هذا حلمنا، إنه إحنا كان حلمنا إنه إحنا نعلم أولادنا، لقيت الحلم هذا ضاع من بيننا ومن إيدينا، حتى ضاع منهم هم، ضاعت طفولتهم، ضاعت حياتهم، تبهدلوا في الحياة.